So I gotta say, in a nutshell, if you were going to do this real fast, you just let people tokenize equity. Almost everything in the world can be loaded into a special purpose vehicle. Pretty much all the assets that people care about are already loaded into a special purpose vehicle. If you could take a special purpose vehicle, a corporation that owns a single asset, and you can then just tokenize the equity in that corporation, then at that point you can tokenize assets as fast as you can put assets into corporations if they're not already in them, and then take those SPVs through the tokenization process. The speed of light on that is probably like how fast can you actually incorporate companies in Delaware? And then you get to the provenance questions of like, how do we prove these assets are there? How do we prove the custodians are there? How do we make sure that this isn't an enormous kind of AI-driven fraud monster? And at that point, you sort of think like, well, there might be a bunch of approaches to that, and obviously Mattereum would be one of them. The reluctance of the powers that be to tokenize equity, kind of gets into this question of securities regulations. The purpose of a publicly traded company is it's kind of like the token that was here before tokens. So the diligence burden associated with publicly tradable equity is pretty substantial. But I wonder whether you get a kind of micro cap thing where it's like, okay, here's a regime. This company is not allowed to have a market cap of more than $2 million. It's suitable for a single apartment. It's easy to do the tokenization and then just let it out there under that regime. But those tokens have a kind of price cap on them, and you cannot put a more valuable asset into a token that has that degree of diligence. You have kind of phased and tiered diligence. Wouldn't be the first time we've seen that from US financial regulators. Reg CF and Reg A plus and all the rest of that crowdfunding stuff, very similar models. So yeah, I think there is a lot of room for this kind of an approach. But tokenization of equity is the door opener for all of it. That's where you have to start if you're going to get this kind of acceleration. And I expect to see legislation from the US on that within 3 months, 6 max.